Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. This is the festival director, Bern Euler.
Thanks, Matt.
He has laryngitis.
I'm fighting laryngitis. It's all right. I met the lead singer of Platinum Blonde yesterday, and he gave me some voice lessons. So I'm able to kind of make do here. First of all, I want to thank you guys for coming out. We've got an amazing lineup here, amazing panel. I'm not going to do too much talking because it's really hard to. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to shut up. We're going to go into a trailer that we put together for the panel, and then I'm going to hand the festivities over to Mr. Warren Sonoda over here. All right, so thank you very much for coming, guys. Enjoy.
He actually got laryngitis from the lead singer of Platinum Blonde. We can roll the clip.
I thought I killed it and then it bit me again. Brains?
A zombie is good for only one thing. Killing.
Honey, I obviously have a problem here.
We have to keep away from populated areas as much as possible. Otherwise, we might not make it.
Stay out here with us.
It wants us dead. Every last one of us.
I think it's following us.
We welcome any spirit to communicate with us.
I think there's more than one ghost here.
What's gonna happen, Lindsay? It's already happening.
Thank you so much, Justin McConnell, for cutting together an awesome trailer to announce the CFF is back. The Canadian Film Fest has been away, but we're now back. I'm really happy to see so many people still coming into the doors, which is great. My name is Warren Sonoda. I am a filmmaker. In a lot of ways, I am also a genre filmmaker. I don't think I've ever made anything that's completely straight or mainstream. It's always been in some sort of genre or something. A couple announcements. We are filming the panel. A little camera back there. If you have a problem with the back of your head being on tape or digital files for prosperity, please sit behind the camera. And I would really, right now, I'm going to be introducing the panelists, but first, I want to say that we have one of the people that really defined Canadian genre filmmaking. And I'm really proud to announce and to introduce George Mihalka, who did My Bloody Valentine, which was the first book that was developed. George, I'd like to pass the mic over to you, just to say that.
I did turn it on, good. A little better, it's not on. Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations to Ben for bringing the festival back from the dead and making it fly like the Phoenix. I'm surprised how many people are here at 6 o'clock. That's really cool, and congratulations to all. Thank you for coming out. You know, we're all talking about genre filmmaking, and I was just thinking a little bit back, suffering Alzheimer's these days, it's a little hard to think about it, but you know, when I was going to school, we were doing, Cronenberg was doing Scanners, and he was doing Rabid and Shivers, and we all thought that there's going to be an interesting wave of films that will carry on, and we can get Canadian films out into the world and people will watch them because they're actually movies that people want to see. And then I saw a bit of a kept on saying genre films, until now we're back here again, and I'm seeing all these fabulous young filmmakers making genre films, and people out here at 6 o'clock in the evening interested in genre films. I'm saying, thank God, finally, we're going to start making movies in this country that people will actually go and see. So I'm very, very pleased with that. You know, I started off, I made Bloody Valentine, and for a long time, it was the kind of movie where everyone knew about it, but when I told people that I made it, they all went, oh.
Why did they do that? Why did they say, ugh?
Well, because it was a genre, because it was a genre movie, you know, and it wasn't about my childhood, you know, while I was being abused as a child, or my little problems that I had as growing up, you know. I don't know. I made a movie for people to watch and enjoy and scream and yell and have a good time at. That was not really well respected in those days, and I'm so happy to see, my God, people are coming in all the way through. So I'm really, really happy to see that. You know, and one of the things about genre films is that the beauty of genre films is that in the same way that sometimes a constraint allows you more liberty, and genre films allow it. If you're playing with a genre, within that genre, you have so much more liberty and creativity than in just trying to make a movie that's just a movie. And I'm so happy to see that this is happening a little bit. Johnny's coming out, Justin's great movie's coming out, The Unleashed is coming out. I'm sitting here saying, wow, hoping that this is going to be the Renaissance again. So on that note, I'm going to pass it on to the panel. And look, I made that movie a long time ago. I'm still making movies. So if you guys are filmmakers, keep on making movies, because hopefully these movies will carry on with you. Take good care.
Thanks, George. You know, I think it's really not funny, but it's a testament to how well My Bloody Valentine holds up over the years, in that, you know, when you're watching the trailer, it really seamlessly blends into the new crop of genre filmmakers and horror filmmakers that are coming up in Canada. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this panel was there's something happening here, and it's real, and it's present, it's vital, it's marketable, it sells. There's a way to make these films and make a living off of them, which is always the sort of struggle as a Canadian filmmaker. There's some fantastic directors, producers, and writers in the audience right now, and we all know the sort of day-to-day in and out. How do we make movies? How do we get people to see them? And one of the ways to do it is put zombies in it, which is a bit of a segue to the first panelist I'd like to introduce. Into Casey Walker, who made a little bit of Zombie, which is premiering here at the Canadian Film Festival, and a bit of a return home, concrete hero to the Northern Ontario regions. Maybe Casey, talk a little bit about how, because I've been keeping up with you on Facebook, and I've heard how everything developed, and maybe just give an overview to how A Little Bit of Zombie became a reality.
First off, I just want to say how excited I am to be up here, because everyone here has had a movie released but me, so this is pretty fucking cool to be included in this company. I started a website in 2006 called MyMillionDollarMovie.com, and it was the world's first crowdfunding website.
It actually influenced a lot of what's happening with Kickstarter.
Yeah, I consulted with them for a little bit off the top of them, because I was being ass raped by the government about securities and exchanges laws, and they're like, how do we avoid getting ass raped? Let me tell you. And then fast forward 2 years after that, I met the creator of Evil Dead, the musical, Chris Bond, and we bonded over a few beverages. And he had a funny little one-line joke that he thought would make a film. Actually, he didn't think it would make a film. I just thought it was a really good idea. He said, what happens when a guy gets bit by a zombie mosquito? He becomes a little bit zombie. And people were like, oh, let's laugh at the funny guy, because we're being polite because we're Canadian. But then I went home and sobered up, and I was like, that's actually really good. Some people agree, some people don't. But
it's sometimes when the idea sticks the next day, and the next day, and the next day.
So I chased him down 2 weeks later. I had he and his writing partner, Trevor Martins, on the script. Fast forward 2 years past that, because no one really cares about development. Bullcrap. We had all the money together for the first film that I was doing, and the boys were handing in their 6th or 7th draft of Zombie, and I'm laughing out loud. And I thought, I want to make this, and I want to make it right now. So I did. I was very lucky that I'm lucky. It's not like it's just like, wow, $2 million. I was working in that direction, but I was just lucky that I had such a good script that I could put money on. And we shot it up in Northern Ontario, because Warren's referring to Return to Home, because I'm from Thunder Bay. We shot it in Sudbury, but he thinks
it's all one thing. No, I've been up there. It's all one thing. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's Canadian shield.
And you also
They're shielded from intelligence.
You access the Northern Heritage Fund as well.
Yeah.
I mean, who's a filmmaker in here? I know there's half of you guys at least. I mean, it is interesting that you were able to access money to go back up north. And the other side of it is, I think it's significant that My Little $1 Million movie, you started something. And in terms of, you don't have to give numbers, but in terms of how much was raised privately for your film?
We got just over $100,000 from people in 36 countries. Just under 2,000 people supported us. And what the goal, after I got tripped up by the government, we lost all momentum, but we switched goals. Instead of just being fundraisers, we wanted to build an audience. And that's kind of what we've been doing. And for drama filmmakers or low budget filmmakers, that's the hardest thing. It's like, hey, here's my movie. Would anyone like to know about it? And we'd already had people that were interested in what we were doing, so that's how things kind of came back around. And for those of you who don't know, what Warren was saying with the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation, it's a lovely organization akin to tax credits, but very, 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 very different. It's not free money, in case you're going to come up to me and say, how do I get some of that free money? It's not free. But it's there, and we are also very lucky to be in Canada and have access to it.
And a little bit Zombie opens here at the CFF.
This is our Toronto premiere. We've had...
Give the time.
9 o'clock. Saturday. I'll stop talking. That's what he's getting.
That's a nice actual segue into Justin McConnell, who has done what I think is one of the most stylish and atmospheric and cool-looking films to come out of Canada, The Collapsed. And one thing I wanted to ask you to start off the discussion about your movie is, how has technology helped all of us to make cool, kick-ass movies where we probably might not have been able to do it 10 years ago or even 5 years ago?
Well, I've got a working mic. It democratized it, which was the main thing. Like with a very low amount of money now, you can go out and make your own film, and it can compete and be just as good or look just as good as something that costs a heck of a lot more. I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum of a lot of people on the panel. I'm in the Collapse up front to the point where I have a screener for sale for $40,000, which is about the price of your average short film. But we shot on the red. We had Steadicam on most days. We had a crane. We had a really talented crew on it. And really, what that was is taking years and years of experience and knowing directors of photography that own gear packages. Essentially, my DOP owns his own.
Pasha, or Paddle, as some of us know him from back in the day, he owns his own rent package.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because I think filmmakers now can buy their own.
Like a red body is like 17 grand, and then obviously Pasha's got 200K worth of lenses.
It's always a class.
But if you get to know the right people and you sort of sell yourself the right way, you can get a really talented crew for much lower than you could have, say, 5-10 years ago, and go out and make a film that, like mine, we're in 12 countries at this point. And to companies like Anchor Bay and Lionsgate picked it up in the UK, and it's done really well for something that, again, when I say 40 grand, I don't mean like it was done. It was to the point where it was cut and we had a screener, but the final sound wasn't done, the final color wasn't done, all the legals weren't clear. So the budget was higher by the time it actually got to that point. But reality is you can go out and shoot something that looks pretty good for very little money nowadays.
And one thing I wanted to ask you, and also Wilson, about your cast. And Casey, your cast has some awesome names. Steve McCaddy, Kristen Hager, who I work with a lot, she's fantastic, and Emily Erla, who has been on my radar for a while. But your film was non-union, right?
Completely non-union.
How did you find that in terms of finding the cast to tell the story? Because it's a pretty intense story. It's not like, you know,
It was
a couple
difficult.
people in a room talking.
We did a lot of casting. We did 3 or 4 days of full auditions. We saw a lot of people. Our lead actor is actually from Seattle, so he emailed us our audition. We actually casted him before we found out he wasn't even from Toronto. He didn't tell us. He's just like, I can't make
There goes
the
your tax credit.
I can't make the cat. No, actually, I'm fine. I'm totally
Excellent.
Catholic. You're allowed one American, right? So in your lead, so that's what we did. But we just did a lot of casting, and we got the best non-union actors we could find for the role, because we've got our leads are our family. So it wasn't just about their performance. It was also like, you don't want a bubbly blonde and then a bunch of dark-haired people that, and then, you know, somehow let's try and sell them as like a family unit, because they don't look similar. So we kind of, it was tough, but we got there.
But you also got people that have done quite a few genre films.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Chris Neil Green,
Yep.
who was in Ryan Andrews'
Ryan
movie.
down there, yeah,
He's kind of a stalwart.
Well, over the years, you meet a ton of actors, and you meet a lot of people, and you start working with people that really want to be in the genre, because you know when they're on set, they're going to give 110%. Well, the point is, you want actors that are going to be comfortable, and there is actually, on the non-union level, there's a lot of talent in the city, or in Ontario, or wherever, and it's available, and you just kind of need to know where to look. And I mean, we did Craigslist and Mandy and a bunch of ads and open calls, but in the end, we just hit every avenue.
Well, and you also got some amazing reviews from Andy Cool and Pandora and a lot of support there.
We just let them see it early, and at that point, it kind of just took off.
I always think there's 5 lives to the film. The one where you're in development, trying to raise the money, the one where you're shooting it, the one when you're editing it, the one when it's finally out there, and the one that gets embraced by the audience.
Yeah.
But my question for the collapse was, because it seems like it's been so successful in sales. When did it click for you? Once you had it done, once like, how did you get from the $40,000 rough cut that had no sound mix and you know, no needle drops or anything?
Probably when we sold Japan. Like, we ended up picking up great sales agents with Raven Banner Entertainment. Andrew is one of the members of them sitting in the audience right there. Great indie sales agents that have a long background in the industry and kind of came together and made this collective of. So we picked them up at AFM in 2010 based on Rough Cut, and then once we sold it to Japan, we were like, okay, Japan's going to give us this money, we're going to take this money and finish the film. And that's what we did. We basically spun that sale into completion.
Well, being Canadian Japanese, I fully endorse that. It segues a little bit into Wilson, who I'm going to introduce in just one second, but the community here is so close-knit. It's so funny. Andrew and I started in music videos at Blackwalk back in the 90s. I was 21. I was syncing your rushes for the videos that you would do on VHS, and the one thing that's always great whenever I do these sort of panels is to see the community come out, to see all these different filmmakers. You know, the filmmakers up here are standing here because there's people behind us, and we feed off each other. Ryan Andrews has made a new movie called Sick. Andrew, you know, you have, is it a sequel?
Well, the Sweet Karma was the first, and then, yeah, we're
you know, there's so much of the community here. And one thing I wanted to ask Wilson, who made, you know, you made a movie with your family.
Yeah.
And I would just, you know, it's a little bit different than anybody else up here. And I just, you know, talk about your film, absolutely, but I'd love to know how that works in terms of the DeSilva family.
We carried in the budget psychiatric treatment. That wasn't on bubble and cost, obviously. No, it was good. It's the whole idea was to, I mean, Canadian filmmaking has been very.
Sorry, can you guys hear him?
Can you hear me? Well, Canadian filmmaking is very unique. So for us, when we looked at it, our family has a lot of experience within the film industry and different variations in different parts. The director, my brother Emmanuel, was the director of the film, absolutely brilliant. My sister was a producer. My niece, who is a creative director within the company, and me. Honestly, I don't know anything about making a movie when it comes to the artistic point of view. I can't point a camera. I don't know anything about that, nor do I really care. I just care that it's a good script. It makes sense. It's well budgeted. It's well crafted.
You don't know how much, as a director, you want to hear a producer say something like that. It's like, I will handle the financials and the tax credits and all this stuff, and I care about creatively, but make a good movie.
Well, yeah, you want to have your input. You want to see.
That must have been a relationship you had with your brother, too, because you trust him.
Exactly, and that's the whole thing that we're promoting as a Canadian family business, which when we came together in 2010, we said we were going to start and open up Dark House Films. We had a business plan. We had a long-term 10-year business plan where we wanted to be and what we were going to do. The Unleashed was just a stepping stone. So it was, you can look at it as more of a financial investment into the company and how we were going to promote filmmaking in Canada and take it up a notch and see what we can do with Sonoda.
Are you saying it was kind of an experiment, or was it?
It was a company family experiment to see, here's a Canadian market, and it's a struggling market, let's face it. In the market, as it paints the whole world, Canadian filmmaking is very small. So how do we take this model now, expand on it, and see where we can take it within the next 5-6 years? The Unleashed is what it is. It's what we can do here in this city, and I'm very proud of it. It didn't cost a lot of money, but it was well organized and well structured so that we can build and focus more as a production house and help support the local Canadian filmmakers that need a helping hand in launching their films and getting it structurally organized. Because that's the most important thing in films. How do you budget it? How do you get the funding for it? How do you make this movie so it's financially viable up in the marketplace and you do well and make good movies? And I think we were more than capable of doing it.
I think that's one of the things overlooked in, I do a lot of things in film schools, and one of the questions is, how to be a director, how to be a filmmaker. And I'm like, you should ask yourself, how are you going to make rent next month? That's your first goal as a filmmaker, is to be able to live. And it sounds like with the DeSilva family, what you've been trying to do is you're taking that up a notch to make it how you can make a company thrive within a family.
We're trying to come up with a structure that's going to make that we can construct a very proud Canadian production company that can develop quality films within this.
And you have another film coming up right now, Monster Buzzer, that you're location scouting in the UK and in Scotland.
That's right. It's another budget. It's another project. We acquired it from Peter Bellwood and Malcolm McDowell, and it's going into production in June this year, June 4th. And it's another project. Again, it's part of our financial model. So it's the next step. So it's the next evolution of Canadian filmmaking. Where we're going to take it co-pro. We decided as a company, as a family, we're going to expand on the UK and open up our own production house up there. And we opened up a couple more over here in Canada. And that's our model. And we're going to grow and help support these types of movies and bring them up to a more, up to the quality where people can see what Canadian filmmakers can actually do.
And one last thing, specifically about The Unleashed, which I have an affinity towards. I did a possession movie called 5 Girls. So is there something to be said about all the filmmakers up here, about the location being very important to the film that you want to make in genre in this country because of budget restraints? Mine was one school. You know, you had that amazing house. You were in the woods. And you were in the house as well in terms of location.
That amazing house is actually, my brother will probably kill me, but that's actually 3 houses combined to make one. Wow. Because you never have one house.
Seamless.
Yeah.
So it's like the attic from one.
That's right. The attic from one, you get the outside shot from another one, and then you have your interior shots, and it all has to work together within the budget. But you know, when you have a loose budget or a little bit better, you can actually pick more artistically pleasing locations. But when you have a tight budget, you have to get really creative. When you have a good crew on your team, you can do a lot.
And that's sort of indicative of what is being made right now, is a lot of these ingenious, nifty, cool, awesome genre films. There's a movie called The Corridor, which is all set in a cabin. And you really need to figure out what's the, you know, because anybody can go out and make a one-room or one-location film, but what's the story that you want to tell? Ryan Andrews did a movie all set in a mall called Black Eve. It's like, well, what happens in a mall in one night? And then you'll have something a little bit more epic, like a movie like Never Lost that Chad Archibald did, which is all over the place and has so many locations and so many characters, and I really don't know how he pulled that one off. But maybe to speak to that is the folks from Anchor Bay. I'm really, really happy that Rob Hurwitz and and Susan Curran were able to come out, because not only Susan, one of my dearest friends, but I think they've been instrumental in what I think is happening in the genre movies in here. Like, not not just starting careers, but keeping them going. And maybe you guys can, in terms of the history of Anchor Bay, but give us some context as to what's happening right now.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. First of all, it's a real pleasure to be here with you guys. You guys are awesome, and we've learned so much from you, and hopefully you've learned from us. And it's good to see so many familiar faces in the crowd. For those of you who know who Anchor Bay is, you'll know that horror genre films are one of the cornerstones of who Anchor Bay is and where Anchor Bay has come from. And I'm really happy to say that 2012 we will have a record number of Canadian films that we'll be releasing. Some of them will be through Canada, some will have, U.S.
What's the ballpark number are you talking about?
In terms of the number, let's see here. I would say it's upwards of 10.
Wow, that's 10 filmmakers you're giving deals to and getting films out there.
That's probably more than 2 other big distributors in this country combined.
But one thing about genre films is that they have a built-in infrastructure that a lot of other genres do not have. If you're doing a drama or a comedy, unless you have a big box office, it's difficult to make it in the marketplace. If you're making a horror movie, if you have a really cool idea for a monster, in some cases, it's the monster that's the star. So you need to pay an A-list actor.
You're probably referencing Monster Brawl, which you just, yeah. Well, no, but I mean, that's a great example of, if you got monsters and you put them in a ring and you have a concept of a hybrid movie, you guys can run with it. And also, there's a built-in audience that you guys can service.
Right, but when you talk about horror movies, there are times when the genre is the star. So if you're making a haunted house movie, the house is the star. You don't need to have a bunch of, A-list actors running around to scare the shit out of you.
Dave Foley's not a slouch, though.
You know what I mean? I think horror, and by genre I don't just necessarily mean horror. I mean, there's horror, there's sci-fi, there's action, Japanese animation, monsters and wrestling, if you want to call that a subgenre. I mean, I've never seen an idea like that presented to us before, but there's a difference between having a finished film presented to us for distribution and collaborating with filmmakers at the very outset with respect to cast, with respect to story development. We have somebody that reads and assesses scripts for us and gets feedback, and excuse me, David, take a bow. And,
thank you, David. Mr. Carter.
Don't get up. Sorry to put you on the spot.
All the writers in the audience, you can make him your best friend.
A lot of the feedback that we'll get will help us sort of make some script enhancements that, if the filmmakers are amenable to it, make it a better movie. And then we sit down and discuss potential budgets and potential revenue projections. And I think it's very key for filmmakers to get that process in place at the outset, as opposed to raising $1 million without having any sense for what the value of that film is in the marketplace. And we've got a pretty intimate group here, so whatever questions you guys have with respect to distribution, how it works, like anything, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, shoot out questions as we go. We'll be opening up the floor for questions in the second half. But one question I do have for you, Rob, though, is I understand the financials, I understand the positioning, but just from maybe even an emotional standpoint, isn't working with the genre scene here, isn't there some sort of energy there? I see you and Susan, you're one of the most visible executives from any distributor out to festivals, to parties, to just getting out there. There must be something that you're feeding off of more than just the box cover and you can move these units.
Definitely the parties, I mean, absolutely. They have a big presence at Fan Expo every year, and the number of genre events and festivals that we're being exposed to is it's increasing, year over year. We try to lend our support to more of them, but the ones that are sort of the ones that are sort of local are ones that we are more adaptable to being able to represent. And you have things in Calgary and Vancouver, and the Whistler Film Festival is sort of expanding, and these are all places that we love to lend our support to. They have different parameters with respect to the kinds of films that they show and the order in which they show things. Fantasia in Montreal is another big one. But we really do find a lot of up-and-coming filmmakers that are coming up through the genres.
You're not just finding them, they're finding you. Like, you must be getting a lot of solicitations and people coming out saying, hey, I just made this movie on my 5D for $500, can you take a look at it?
In the last couple of years, I would say in the last 12 months, for sure, because the distribution landscape has shrunk. in Canada. I mean, you have Alliance absorbing Maple, and you have E1 absorbing Vivendi, and there are less distribution options for filmmakers to go to.
Please don't remind me about Maple.
And we have very open door policy. I mean, if people want to come and talk and sort of have their ideas assessed, and that's how you build a stronger industry.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
But with Anchor Bay, what do you see coming on the horizon? What's the next part of this? Because just judging by your releases in the past 3 years, you've laid a nice sort of foundation. But how important? You just said that the genre is a start. But how important is finding a name that you can move? How important is certain things, and what do you look for in films when you're starting? And maybe Susan can speak to this too, because Susan is the director of marketing and acquisitions. But even from a personal standpoint, what do you look for in films?
I'll answer that by saying that Susan and I sat down. We figured that in the last 8 years that we've worked together, we've probably handled 1,100, probably more releases, right? And when you rank those, and you sort of see the ones that have done, generated the most revenue, and then sort of rank them from top to bottom, there's a pattern to the ones that are sort of in the top 100, right? And the pattern is generally, it's a genre film of some sort. It's got a decent budget. It has recognizable cast. But the key is that it has had some sort of, not a major theatrical release, but there's a festival push behind it. There are limited screenings in limited cities. The filmmakers themselves undertake theatrical exhibition programs, and they're as vested in getting the film out there as we are. And when you put those two together, and you put all that together, then you become an unstoppable force in the marketplace. And there's very little room for not being successful. When you have all of that, you line it all up, and you sort of, do it step by step. Well, good artwork, yes.
Is it possible to have an Insidious here? A movie that's made for like 1.4 or whatever, and then goes out and makes, was it 40 or 50 million at the box office?
Well, it's always possible.
I mean, not in Canada, I'm talking originating here, getting that American sale, and platforming, so that I think the gold ring, and the thing that's elusive to a lot of filmmakers, is the actual end payday, because we never see it. I know that when I make a film, I'm looking at my director fee as what I'm going to be getting financially out of it. I make a Cooper's camera for nothing, knowing that it's going to further my career, and Anchor Bay is going to pick it up and run with it every year, which is great. But I'm certainly not doing it because of any financial sort of aspirations. So what I guess when I'm asking, what's the next phase for Anchor Bay? Is there a way to get that hit?
Well, if you look at The Devil Inside, for example, I would say that the marketing campaign probably exceeded the budget of the movie.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, the key is to if you're doing a theatrical campaign, how do you get as many people to the theater as possible? And I think Susan might be able to speak more to this than I can, because we've handled some theatrical films, and again, going down to the pattern, it's all about how much are you willing to spend in a certain market to make people aware of your movie, right? So.
Yeah, and I'm sure if anybody's able to find that Insidious and find that hit, it's going to be Anchor Bay, because you're just out there looking at it's almost like baseball. You're out there looking at the minor leagues and trying to find the baseball players that are going to perform as superstars, and you're putting your money behind them.
Well, each film that we've acquired, generally, the Canadian films now, each one is uniquely different. Some we will do some theatrical activity on, some will do the whole festival push. But in some cases, the filmmaker himself will undertake the whole theatrical thing. And all that increases visibility. And you put that all together, I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than having somebody do a theatrical campaign, 2 years ago, and then trying to put a DVD deal together, and let's see if it all is relevant 2 years later. It's not. It all has to sort of happen in lockstep.
Especially with the internet and blogging and all the websites, you have to hit with an iron spot.
Yeah, and when you're doing a deal like, if you're piecing territories together, like for example, you do a deal with Anchor Bay in Canada, you do a deal with somebody else in the U.S. We have got histories with other companies in the U.S. that we have partnered with, and the key thing to remember is you want to have the same street, that you want to go day and date with whoever is handling a movie or the rights for a specific movie in the U.S. because there's so much crossover marketing that happens. You want to take advantage of that. So it's sharing assets is the English word.
Thank you.
So it's very much about being tactical, being strategic, and sitting down and having a game plan before the camera starts rolling. The thing is, it's one thing to make a movie, but selling it is an entirely different beast altogether.
Absolutely.
And finding your audience.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Last time I saw Susan was at a taco stand in LA, and it was warmer, but she brought the sunshine here. I love my segues, they're great. Susan Curran, you're the Director of Marketing and Acquisitions at Anchor Bay. What do you look for? Maybe one of the questions from the audience would be, what do you look for in films that you're going to acquire? What excites you?
What was the question? I'm just kidding. What excites me? Well, Rob and I actually, we work as a team at Anchor Bay. Our Canadian office is quite small. There's only 6 of us that work there. And when somebody brings us a film, it actually goes to kind of a committee, and everybody in our office likes it.
I think all the committees here, right?
Actually, they're not. They all had other arrangements, but everybody in our office will watch the film, and we all kind of have to agree on it, and we all discuss who's the audience, what's going to happen with this, where's it going to go. And we have a young 26-year-old person in our office, we have a young 30-year-old woman who is into other things, and everybody brings something to the table and is able to look at anything in any genre and be able to tell us, what they feel about it. So it's not just Rob and I looking at a film and going, yeah, I like it, no, I don't like it. So Rob is really the person who does the acquisitions. I just go out and make nice to people and bring them in, and Rob does the deals. He just doesn't have acquisitions.
But that's one thing that I found with Anchor Bay that's very kind of different in that you do go out of your way to facilitate the filmmaker. You will go to their premieres. You will make sure that they're taken care of. You will buy them a drink. You will, and it's that sort of first-class treatment that is kind of rare, in the sort of Canadian landscape, and also just speaks to how important it is for you to develop relationships with these filmmakers. Because it's probably not the one film you're looking at from somebody. You want to...
We're looking at the
potential.
Absolutely. I mean, if I may, with Justin, The Collapsed is a solid film, and Justin worked his butt off to put it in, all these different festivals, and it's screened more times in Toronto than any of my films.
Was it 42 times or 47? 47 times it's screened in Toronto.
These are the people we want to work with. So with that being said, we're investing in Justin, and we want to be the people who are there when he does his next film that's going to be bigger and better.
The Eternal.
The Eternal.
Little plug, tiny plug.
How important is it for the filmmaker to come, not with just the film, but with the package to promote it and like that built-in audience that Rob was saying in terms of...
You talked about Never Lost, you talked about Collapse. These all came to us with, festivals already under their belt, with really great artwork, with a lot of thought put into the project already. And when we're going to do festivals and stuff, they're there. They say, well, what do you want? Well, do an autograph session, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. And because we're a smaller studio, we don't have a ton of money. So we go out and we, want to meet people, we want to see things before anybody else does, and we want to invest in things because we can't go by Insidious. That being said, because we don't have a lot of budget, we can't go out and do all these things. It really needs to be a team effort, and people need to stand up for their film and do what they can for it, because our job is to put it in Walmart and sell it for you. And the best way to do that at Walmart is for there to be a story attached to each film, each project.
And not show Dave full his penis, as we did in previous Christmas.
Not a family Christmas film.
I just want to open it up for questions right now. If there's any questions from the audience, if not, I'm going to start asking the panel. Yes, over there.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to kind of touch a little bit more on the distribution and how it's getting to theaters, and seeing that genre films are almost getting into theaters now, which is kind of exciting. Donovan Becko had a release of multiple cities, HOBO with a Shotgun. I see a movie like a little bit zombie, and I think Shaun of the Dead, right? I mean, this is our comedy zombie movie, right? And I just wanted to know what you're seeing, Anchor Bay is seeing as far as that evolution.
Well, so like I said, Casey, do you want to talk about your theatrical stuff, or
Sure.
what's on?
We are going independent. There's a lot of independent theaters in this country. We're sitting in one of them right now. And
what Casey is talking about is actually four-walling or renting space at theaters across Canada.
We're actually not renting space because what we're doing is we're bringing extra value to the theaters by just renting out and saying.
So are you booking independently with the theaters themselves?
Yeah, we're speaking. What we're doing is we're creating an event. What people don't do much anymore is create an event around a release, and we're going to be available one weekend only in theaters, over 100 in Canada. One side of the country to the other, and we're going to places where Canadian films don't get to go. We don't have a big budget.
Listowel, Ontario.
Yeah, if they got a theater, we're going there. And we're doing it on the cheap, but it's a movie that screens really well with a crowd. It throws back to films of yesterday that when people get together and laugh, and I think that's really important right now. So we actually just started today, but the response already from theaters has been good, and they like the idea that zombies are hot right now. It doesn't hurt that we're competing against Battleship on our opening weekend, or as we've come to call around the office, Battleship. So they're going to have $100+ million marketing budget, and we're still going to probably get attention because we are the alternative. When I set out to make this movie, I didn't think that I was going to have to do all this, but I figured that I might as well learn it because there's a good chance, especially in this country, that I will. And that's the road we took. We probably could go open 5 screens in Canada with SPLICE or Empire, but I took a risk on making this, so I figured I might as well take a risk on getting it out there.
See it.
Yeah.
How is that different, George, when you make My Bloody Valentine in terms of, there seems to be a lot of do-it-yourself right now in the genre movie scene with independent filmmakers and filmmakers that have made a bunch of movies. We constantly have to do a lot of the promotion ourselves. What was it like in 1981 when you had My Bloody Valentine and the studio that was behind it?
It was a totally different thing. It was actually quite intimidating. It opened in 1,200 theaters across North America, and it was extremely intimidating, especially because I just wanted to get up everywhere and scream and yell that this is the movie that they're selling is not the movie you're going to see.
You weren't happy with the original trailer?
Well, the trailer was great. I mean,
because I thought the trailer was
yeah, they didn't tell anybody that they cut out all the stuff, right? So basically, everyone went into My Bloody Valentine. Everyone said, "Well, where was the blood?"
It's on YouTube now.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but in that sense, I was very lucky that I did that movie with at the time probably Canada's version of Roger Corman was John Dunning and Andre Link at the time in the Cinevics, and when I hear people in Anchor Bay, and I've gotten to know them, I'm good friends with Anchor Bay, and I see these guys work, and they're doing it the way John Dunning and Andre Link did, which is making relationships with the filmmakers where I didn't want to work for anybody else. I just wanted to go make movies with these guys because, and it was a little like when it was mentioned, that the producers, I want to have a good script and I want you to make a good movie. So that was the way it was. So for me, it was very, very different. Obviously, like I said, the frustration came with the fact that the movie wasn't the movie they were selling. But on the other hand, I was not involved at all. In Canada, I was involved, but in the United States, basically, they wouldn't know who I was. And
but they didn't
really give a shit either. But they saw the movie.
And maybe just to end with to answer your question, I think now, especially with Twitter and Facebook and all the social media platforms, it's, I'm not going to say it's much easier, but there's certainly more access to an audience to get the word out about the film, which we all have to do. I mean, every single day I'm making personal pleas to my Facebook friends to talk about Servitude and to talk about its opening at the Cumberland weekend, the same weekend burn that your festival's on. Thank you. But it's a constant struggle for everybody, whether you make a movie for $500 or make a movie for $5 million to get that audience out, because it's your responsibility to make sure that theater that first weekend there's people there. Any more questions right now from the audience? One thing I wanted to ask each member, and this could be as short or as informed as you want, because we all come from different aspects of filmmaking. If you could isolate something that was successful that you could impart to the audience about making the genre films, and something that was a failure. And I like asking this question at panels because usually you find something in there as a filmmaker. Oh, don't do that, or I should do that when I'm putting together my film. I don't know if you guys just want to go.
Start from that side.
Start from that side.
I've never made a film, but I'll tell you what you do wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, from a distribution point of view, having said having sold over 1,000 movies, the things that are suicide with respect to how you want to categorize your movie is do not call it art house, especially if it's a drama or a comedy.
Quirky doesn't work better.
Really long titles don't
work.
Do not call your film a mockumentary. Documentaries have a life of their own, and they do well on the festival circuit, and they probably do quite well on broadcast. They do not perform that well on DVD unless you're Michael Moore.
Yeah, we learned that on Ham and Cheese. We quickly stopped talking about it as a mockumentary when we made it, and people just accepted it more as it was before The Office and that whole sort of pseudo documentary style, but we learned that early.
Yeah, I would say make it clear if you're going to do a horror movie, make a straight up horror movie. If you're going to make an action movie, I mean, action is something that you can make you can make an action horror movie, you can make an action sci-fi movie, but doing a horror comedy can be difficult, but if you do it right, you get something like Over the Zombie, right? So it can be a fine line to balance when you make genre.
I'll take that compliment.
Wilson.
What was the question again?
Something that's successful that you learned through the process of making your film, and maybe something that you was a regret or a mistake that you can pass on to the audience.
What I would find successful about the film is that we kept right down to our business model and how we wanted to structure the film. So, right, it started from the script, how you develop the script, and how you budget the film. And the budget is the key. So,
some filmmakers just like they have a credit card, they don't know where everything's coming, and hopefully it won't run out.
And that's a big mistake. The first most critical aspect of making a film is budgeting your film from beginning to end. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear about development, but that is the critical part. Make sure you're developing your film properly from the get-go, budget it correctly, carry a contingency if you can afford to, even if it's small, and plan for it. And then don't shop to the budget. A budget is not a shopping list that you spend everything that's there. You budget it what you need, and then you try and cut back and build your contingency up. So what I found successful is our business model worked very well. We came in under our production value budget, which did a lot of things for us. We had a little bit more apparel with P&A and developed a company policy in our business plan and financial aspect. What we did wrong, what I would think we would probably want to do a little bit better is don't shortchange yourself on the budget. So there's some areas within our film that we felt probably we have just spent a little bit more money. There's a word out there, we'll fix it in post. It's not true. It's not always the case.
If you don't have it, you can't fix it.
That's right. So, take your time with it and make sure you're allowing proper time. Don't get out there with a camcorder and just try and do it in 5 days when you need 10 days. You should take your time with it and make sure you're executing it properly. So you learn a lot, and you keep learning every film you make. You keep learning what's the next step. So when we moved on to our next film, when we budgeted it, we learned from our mistakes that we made before, and you accommodate those needs you need within the next budget. You plan it well, and then as a production house, and from my perspective, you gotta let it go. Now you take it over to the creative side. You plan it, you give them the tools that they need to make the film that they want to make. There's your successful model right there.
Spoken like a true producer, that's fantastic.
Both my positives and negatives are sort of the same thing. The internet is an incredible tool for any filmmaker right now, and one thing I learned kind of early on is that it's a giant club. Every webmaster, everybody, all the editors at Bloody Disgusting, Dread Central, Fangoria, they all know each other, and if you can get them really good with somebody there, they'll run your press. So when we set out to make the collapse, before we shot a frame of film, we made up a teaser poster and we ran the gamut of the sites. And we already had people knowing about the film before we shot it, so by the time we had a trailer, they're running the press again. So that's great if you've got a film that you're actually making.
And what does the press actually do? Because there's some
Like,
misconceptions.
you mean like what the...
Does it then make you feel fancy, or does it have an
No,
actual tangible?
there's definitely a tangible, because the reality of it is this. When you're going for distribution after your film is finished, the first thing they're going to do is look at...
They Google you. They will Google you.
Oh yeah, they'll Google the hell out of you. And if you turn up hundreds and hundreds of hits of stories, and like there's comment section of people saying this looks great, this looks like shit, this looks... You know, it all sort of helps strengthen the resolve of the film out in the market, and they realize it's higher positioned in the public mind, and then they'll basically go, okay, wow, this already has a little bit of an audience ingrained into it. Get to know YouTube channels with high viewers. There's a, well, I mean, I don't want to give away all the secrets, but there's some really,
there's some really good viewers that
you can ask directly, but there's some really good channels that you can get to know the people that run them. You put I mean, you're up on the same channel I am, and you'll end up with 20,000 views within the first week. Like, you just got to get to know specifically what type of press each site wants, who the person is to contact, because there's like 5 or 6 or 7 different people contributing, and that helped our film a lot. We had, I targeted Ain't It Cool News and Fangoria for early reviews before we started playing anywhere, and I said, listen, you know, Mike and Fangoria, whoever it is at either of these sites, watch the movie, you know, if you like it, great, if you don't, great, whatever. But those 2 early reviews made our nut. Like, I mean, then we did our theatrical, which I need to add on the thing earlier. We hired a theatrical distributor to put us in a bunch of theaters, and that way we weren't four-walling. But because we had those initial reviews, we were able to put that on our marketing, on our posters, and people trust Fangoria, people trust Ain't It Cool News, people trust Dread Central. That's where they get their news now. And then it just kind of built from there. We ended up in like print press and stuff. But on the other side of the coin, we have this other film called The Eternal, which we started out financing in 2008. We got about halfway to 2.5 million, and it all fell apart on us. And we did the exact same thing. We did chicken or the egg with the press. We announced a slate of films, The Eternal's coming. We attached some actors on it that actually let us go public. But we announced too soon. And when all our money fell apart, now it's 4 years later, we still don't have the movie made, and there's a little bit of egg on the face. So when they have you do an interview now, it's like, so what's going on with The Eternal? Well, you know.
There's a really good clip on YouTube on it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, we kept developing, we kept releasing stuff to the public. There's, you know, the teaser trailer that we made for $1,000 has like 300,000 views on YouTube right now, and people want to see it. It's just, and it has helped us get in the doors. But
because it's 2008,
yeah,
it's a
well,
little...
you know, I updated the trailer. I said introduction 2012 as opposed to introduction 2009. You know, it's one of those things. You don't want to announce too early, but that's one of those lessons I learned a lot, like sort of the hard way.
It's not a deal when they say it's a deal. It's not a deal when you sign a contract. It's only a deal when you're spending your money.
Exactly. But at the same time, the initial meetings I had with Anchor Bay when I went to the U.S. and stuff like that, and they passed me on to Canada, that was all because of the early announce on The Eternal and the early press we got on that. People saying, "Wow, this sounds cool." Yeah. So, you know, it doesn't work for everyone, but just know the right timing to start announcing things. And you can do the press yourself. There are great PR people out there, and they will help your film. But you really got to learn how to use the internet to push yourself, because social networking and everything is just open everything wide up. You could spend $5,000 on something.
How many people here came through finding out on Facebook or Twitter or any social network? 3 people.
What?
Well,
you're fucking you're lying. Everyone else in here is lying. Talking
with Casey, who originated Kickstarter, you heard it here first. The successes and maybe a mistake that you made along the way doing a little bit zombie.
Oh, I've got a lot of mistakes. That's why I've been sitting here and talking.
You can start with
which one do I lead with? Because there's just so many.
The success, I can say, is trust your instinct. Especially with comedy for me. A lot of people thought I was funny. I think I'm funny sometimes. Sometimes I just talk. But that got me through a lot of it. And we laughed all the way through development. We laughed all the way through shooting it. We laughed all the way through post. Because of that, we had a really funny film. The mistakes I made, I don't know, it's hard because if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. And I did make a lot. And I think I know a lot about this business now because of the mistakes I made. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. If I give you one in particular that I regret.
Something for a future filmmaker that's going out making their first film. What would you say to them?
I got a lot of, I learned earlier on from a producer to make sure you're the dumbest person in the room. So I went out and I found a lot of people with a lot of experience, and some of them were perfect for what I needed, and then some when my instincts said no, I said their experience should make me say yes, and I did that, and I have 3 regrets on my film, and they're all hires. They're all people that have a lot of experience. And
you just didn't have a personal relationship with them?
No, it wasn't just the relationship. At the end of the day, they were more interested in themselves than the project, and what the damage they cause is financial. And when you're doing indie, that's the worst damage. You can't repair that. It's not like you can run out and go, hey, let's get another $12,000 that just disappeared. Like it. Yeah, and when it comes at the worst possible time. So those were that was the one big regret. And there were things too, because you have to trust people. You hire people to hire people, and you hope that they get the right people. And these were hires that I made. Someone else didn't make. So it trickled down through our crew and our process, and thankfully we could fix it in post because we did have it. But that was I should have went with my gut when things felt a little off, and I didn't. So. Yeah,
filmmaking is hard enough, and it's grueling enough, and you spend so much time, not just on set, but in post and in prep. You really want to surround yourself with good people that will be your friends as well. You don't have to love the people you work with. I do. I mean, the team I always go out with, I've worked with for some of them for more than 10 years from the old Blackwalk days. It's Jeremy Betting. I started with him in film school. You just want to work with good people because life's too short. And really, when you're making a movie, you want people to have your back. And then maybe George, you can tell us either with My Bloody Valentine or some of the, because you've done so many films and television, things that you found to be successful and maybe a mistake that you've learned along the way that you can tell people.
The first thing that I would have to say is, in terms of what I've learned and when I've done my best work is when you love making the film you're making. The worst mistake...
You believe in the material.
Exactly. But the worst mistake you can make is falling in love with the film you've made. And you've got to be able to have
kill your darlings.
Exactly. You've got to be able to have an arm's length. I think probably the worst mistakes I made is when I became too insistent on the cut that I wanted. And,
to the exclusion of people's...
To the exclusion of people who, I should have known better and listened more. So that's one thing I've learned is never fall in love with the film you've made.
Be precious about something in the script phase that you want to hold all the way through to get it.
Exactly. Because you had this idea, you loved it, and hey, you had this idea, and everyone's saying it's not really working. Yes, it is. You just don't get it. But Buñuel once said, you never finish a film, you abandon it, and that's what I learned. And that's probably the most valuable lesson I learned. Is at one point you just got to say, this is the movie. And I wished it was that, but it's not. This is what it is. Leave it alone. It works. Goodbye. Next movie.
And this is coming from someone that made My Bloody Valentine, which endures to this very day. So it's interesting. Here's the thing that I always find when I'm at film festivals, whether I'm in the audience or here, is we're all in this together. The 19-year-old filmmaker that might be in the audience right now, I was in that seat. 2 years ago, feeling a little bit longer, feeling the same way, feeling the same sort of intimidation and the trepidation about doing it. I remember coming to Toronto for the very first time and seeing all these white trucks everywhere and all these film trucks. It's like, oh my God, they're making movies. What is Honeyway? And as the years go by, those trucks become more familiar, and as the years go by, I know the grip on the truck. I know the makeup artist. I'm invited on the craft service truck to get a coffee as I'm walking by on College Street. It becomes less of a mystery. And the more you stay in the game, as these filmmakers have, and distributors, and film lovers, the more that you find that this community, especially here in Canada, you know, I hear it a lot, and I'm part of it a lot in Toronto. Toronto has such a vibrant, impressive, self-sustaining, but also fellow filmmakers care about each other. When Ingrid Gunninger is putting out, you know, I'm a good person, I'm a bad person, I'm the first one in line for that. You know, when I heard about Casey doing my $1 million film project, it's like, that's what we need, and we have to trumpet it, because their success is our success, and it feeds off of each other. I don't, Vern, how am I doing for? Right, yeah. If there's one really quick question from the audience, we'll take it.
Last chance.
Oh, right there.
Does anybody receive telefilm financing or assistance?
Do you want to make violent movies? Like really gory violent movies? Is that what you're after?
Well, I'm just curious to see if anybody.
I have received telefilm funding for my new movie Servitude, which opens Cumberland Theater this weekend. And granted,
I saw it the other day. It was pretty good.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got telefilm funding for that. I also got some telefilm funding on Textuality, which is a romantic comedy. And then the first telefilm money I got was for Cooper's Camera, which became Cooper's Christmas, that Anchor Bay picked up. They came in for finishing funds. Here's the thing about telefilm. There is a mystery to that. There's like, before I knew what it was all about, and I kept on getting rejected, I would like grumble and just be pissed off. But once you actually work with them and you realize they want you to make the best movie possible. They're going to give you these tools. A lot of it's going to be financing. That's going to allow you to do things. Once you get through that door, you have to prove to get through that door, right? They didn't talk to me until I did Cooper's Camera and I got into the Toronto Film Festival. But I showed them that I could do something that was unique or something, you know, that they wanted to see what I was about. Once you get past that, it's a lot more, it's a collaborative sort of union.
Yeah, it's a lot about the development. I mean, give yourself time to work with them and get them to see what you're trying to do. And there's very long procedure. We never got any, but we never applied for any either, but we're going to. So we're in the middle of the process right now with some of our future projects. And if you just allow yourself the time to get there, they're actually a very powerful team player, and they'll help you.
Yeah, and now, you know, you need
go ahead.
I can speak from experience that no one in this country will let you make a movie unless you've made a movie. Makes no fucking sense, but once you wrap your head around that idea and you just go and make something, and I'm not saying rush out, I'm just going to shoot right now, bring it to Rob. Hey Rob, what do you think of this? And Rob will never talk to you again. Well, maybe if you buy a drink. But it's true, you really have to go, you don't rely on the funding sources we do have in that regard. Just go and make a really, really, really good movie, because after that, people are going to call you.
They'll find you. If you make good shit, they'll find you, for sure. Absolutely. That's all the time we have.
And be nice to everyone.
Always take the time.
You have no idea who you're going to 5 years down the road, right?
Yeah.
I want to say one thing to finish.
I've had PAs who become producers that I work with.
Absolutely.
I'll be quick. I do believe there is, you know, a revolution, if you want to call it, in Ontario, in BC, in the Maritimes, within the genre. And like I said, this is a record with the number of Canadian movies that have put out. I think 2012 will be even a bigger year. But it's a business like any other. And for those of you that have been in the business, what I'm going to say is probably no big surprise. But for those that are new to it, a very simple way to look at this business, and we've talked about this before, is picture it as a triangle. One side is creative, one side is finance, one side is distribution. You need to have all those pieces in play if you want to have a real shot of success, especially if you...
And in the middle is a really good movie, hopefully.
Absolutely. But that's sort of the paradigm of the three-legged stool, as somebody else has sort of referred to it. I mean, you take one of those sides away, you can't really stand. You don't have a fully functioning unit. And it's rare for one person to be able to have the talents to manage all three. So surround yourself with people. If your key thing is creative, find some finance people that share your vision. If your key thing is finance, find the creative people that can sort of, you know, bring life to the financing that you want to apply to the industry without losing your shirt. There's a way to put it all together, as long as you sort of follow that sort of model.
Thank you, panelists, for coming out. I wish you had more time. you for coming out. I want to thank you